Thank you, Lescan Corley. I welcome the opportunity to speak on this bill tonight. Today, actually. There is no doubt that this bill, regardless of where one stands on it, will go down in history and will be spoken about for many years to come. Hundreds of people were here last night trying to view their serious concerns on the bill that's before us. And I suppose, you know, I've been conscious of the fact that there's viewpoints on both sides, and we need to respect both sides. And I made sure of that since I've been elected to Dáil Éireann. While I did have a personal view, I always was willing to sit down and talk to both sides, people from both sides of the argument. That has led some people to verbally abuse me online or whatever, but that happens on both sides, and we have to accept that in the positions we're in. And as I said, to make sure I had covered every aspect of this bill, I have spoken to members of the public, as I said, from both sides, and social workers in particular, who have a lot of experience in supporting vulnerable women facing pregnancies, and who are extremely concerned about the lack of protection for vulnerable women contained in the current draft bill. I appreciate that this bill addresses issues that are difficult to discuss for many people. Abortion can be a divisive issue and has been for years. I do not take issue with someone's stance on this, provided that they are open, honest, and do not shy away from making their voice heard. Like many of my colleagues, on both sides of the debate, there is a need for respect and reasoned debate, as I say, from both sides. As my colleague, Deputy Michael Healy-Rae, said earlier this year, if you don't stand for anything, you will fall for everything. Everyone is entitled to their opinion on this topic, and I do respect the people of Ireland have spoken when they exercised their vote during the 8th Amendment referendum. And I am not standing up here trying to change anyone's minds, but I am standing up here to protect and promote the rights of all mothers to receive the genuine support that they are entitled to. Many people who voted yes in the 8th Amendment referendum were acting in the interests of choice and compassion for women facing unexpected challenging pregnancies, but were or are not necessarily on board with all of the extreme aspects of the bill before the Dáil today. The exit poll showed that many yes voters had very serious concerns, which they hoped would be addressed in order to have a reasonable, restrictive regime put in place. These specific issues need to be addressed through amendments to this bill. It should be noted, Minister, that you yourself in March of this year, in this very chamber, declared that you would not be debating the details of your then draft heads of bill. As you said, the people would not be voting on the bill, but on the removal of the 8. The Referendum Commission, in their booklet, and indeed the High Court during the summer, confirmed that people were not asked to vote on any legislation, as there was no guarantee the proposed legislation would ever come to pass. Therefore, to now claim that the Irish people have voted on this legislation and no deviation from the proposed legislation can be allowed is speaking out of both sides of the same mouth, Minister, and is extremely disrespectful of the democratic process of debating legislation which now comes before us and which the Irish people are entitled to. There is too much at stake to rush this bill through the Dáil with the undue haste you seem to favour. It is also important to note that there are a number of areas of major difference between what the people were led to believe before the referendum and what is in this proposed legislation now. Minister Harris repeatedly stressed that early delivery would be mandated after viability, and yet your bill makes no mention of early delivery, instead allowing for the deliberate ending of a baby's life through all 9 months of pregnancy in certain cases. The Irish people did not vote for that. It was stressed that unborn babies would be protected against the discrimination on the grounds of disability, but I can find no such protection in your bill. You owe it to the Irish people to add in those protections you spoke of. Irish people were not told that their taxes would be funding these procedures that will end the most innocent lives in Irish homes, abortion clinics or hospitals, and we now know that a recent poll in August suggested 60% of Irish people are opposed to their taxes paying for abortions. What are we talking about? Is it 12? Is it 20 million? It's going to cost the state. Additionally, some sections of the bill have already been amended by you to widen the grounds where abortion would be legal, available, and to reduce the protections for vulnerable babies and healthcare workers. I am specifically referring to the redefinition of viability to exclude life-sustaining medical treatment. A premature wanted baby would be entitled to requiring a baby with a life-limiting condition to be likely to live 28 days after birth and narrowing the grounds for conscientious objection. This is not the bill legislating for restrictive grounds for abortion beyond 12 weeks. Many were led to believe, Minister, and it does not contain many of the protections you promised Irish people it would for either healthcare workers, vulnerable babies or mothers. Irish people were not asked to and did not vote on this extreme legislation, and there is no obligation on any member of this House to put their names to a bill that so utterly disregards the lives of the most vulnerable members of our human family, and so dismally fails to provide genuine support for mothers or freedom of conscience for healthcare workers. Prior to the referendum, I made the point that I believe that if we offer abortions instead of real support services and compassion to pregnant mothers, that we are failing those pregnant mothers and their unborn children. I still stand strongly by this point. In order to provide adequate support service and compassion to pregnant women, we need to look at the following points. One, an important question, Minister, is not will there be a three-day cooling off period, but will there be a 72-hour cooling off period? For example, if a woman visits her doctor on Monday evening at 6 p.m. under the 3-day cooling off period, she will be able to have her termination at 9 a.m. on the Wednesday morning, according to the 3-day cooling off rule, because under this rule the day of the doctor's visit and the day of the termination is considered a day each. Under the rule, therefore, this only gives a woman maybe 39 hours before her termination. But I feel it is very important that every woman is given 72 hours minimum from the time she visits her doctor before she has to make her final decision, and any termination would be carried out. This is where the supports I mentioned earlier are vital for a pregnant woman. It is very clear to me that after a woman visits a doctor to discuss termination, she should have a minimum of 72 hours to digest the information given to her by her doctor and to contact any supports who may be able to help her access all of her choices. During the cooling off period, I also suggest that a booklet should be provided to all women with unbiased information on all of our choices, all of the support services available, and any other information that is relevant to pregnancy and termination. I believe it is vital that any girl under the age of 18 must be accompanied by a parent or a guardian if they are seeking a termination in this country. We do not allow the sale of alcohol and cigarettes to a person under 18 for their own protection, and I feel for a girl under 18 to make a decision in respect to termination, it is vital she is accompanied by a parent or a guardian, again for her own protection and for her own support. My main concern has been and still is for the protection of all mothers. I believe a free counselling service should be made available to all mothers who are facing unexpected, challenging pregnancies, and in particular for those women considering termination, and post-abortion support for those women who do have terminations. If women are to be adequately cared for, then support services must be widely advertised and fully funded with ring-fence monies. If the health services is to cope with the upcoming demand for terminations, then safeguards need to be put in place to ensure other patients' care isn't compromised. Minister, already we have a huge waiting list in the country for simple procedures. As a 15-minute cataract procedure, you could be waiting 5 years. It is vital the government provides adequate level of funding and resources to meet the future demand of terminations, and also that other waiting lists won't get any longer as a result of this government not adequately supplying enough resources. I feel it is important to mention that if a woman is seeking termination on mental health grounds, then one of the doctors involved must be a psychiatric doctor, and a comprehensive mental health assessment must be completed, and appropriate mental health supports must be provided for those women before any decision is made following any termination provided. We all heard the shocking figures that one in every 5 pregnancies in Britain end in abortion. The vast majority of those, 98%, on the grounds of mental health, Minister. Either the UK has a mental health crisis of epidemic proportions among pregnant women, or that this ground is being widely abused. Section 10 of our bill is extremely similar to the grounds used in Britain, and it is imperative that the protections are included to protect against similar abuse of those grounds here, and to ensure that pregnant women with genuine mental health concerns are identified and supported. It is important also that accurate dating of pregnancy must be carried out with ultrasound equipment as one measure by a medical practitioner. This is vital to protect both mothers and doctors against the medical, legal and indeed life-threatening complications that can arise from an inaccurate dating of a pregnancy. Protections also need to be placed in this legislation for the unborn child. For example, all the recent outrage about the Tuam babies, some of whom are reported to have died before birth. There can be surely no objection to an amendment that will require the remains of a terminated baby to be treated with the respect. There should be respectful arrangements with regards to burial. As the government seems determined to ensure most women terminating their pregnancy do so at home, consideration must also be given to how the tiny babies' bodies are delivered and are taken care of after. We need also to address a harrowing situation of when babies are born alive after a failed abortion. All care necessary should be given to the baby. This should go without saying, but we know in many countries where abortion is legal, babies born alive during failed abortions are all too often left to die alone and uncared for. It is also of note, Minister, that you have taken it upon yourself to completely redefine how the term termination of pregnancy is understood. In our health system currently, our medical guidelines acknowledge that it may occasionally be necessary to perform a termination of pregnancy where a mother's life is at risk while giving the baby a chance. However, your bill now clearly redefines termination of pregnancy as a medical procedure intended to end the life of a fetus. While it is occasionally medically necessary to end the pregnancy to protect a mother's life or health, it is never medically necessary to intentionally terminate the life of a child. Early delivery must always be mandated beyond viability, and babies born alive must always be given necessary medical treatment to give them a chance to live. Your bill, Minister, would be more accurately titled Regulation of Termination of Life Bill as it currently stands. Protection also needs to be put in place for anyone involved in any activity linked to termination. I believe, in line with international practice in many countries, medical practitioners such as doctors, midwives, pharmacists and also any other persons such as cleaners, etc., should be allowed the decision on conscientious grounds whether or not to be directly or indirectly involved in any service that supports termination if they choose so. Some medical professionals have approached me and expressed their concern that they would be indirectly involved in a termination if they referred a patient for termination. There is a system in New Zealand which is an opt-out regime. Those willing to provide a direct or indirect service that links them to termination could opt in. I feel this would be more respectful for anyone working in the medical profession. In fact, writing into law a positive right to freedom of conscience would be the best approach to guarantee the desired outcome. As I said earlier, I'm not here to change any voter's mind on the decision they made on the 8th Amendment referendum, but I want to ensure that life-affirming choices are incentivised, and also ensuring that women won't feel under pressure to terminate. Minister Harris, you seem to be extremely concerned that cost will never be a barrier to accessing terminations. But if you truly want to support women, then will you ensure that cost will never be a barrier to a woman continuing a pregnancy or raising her child? In light of the fact that the Oireachtas Committee noted that the majority of terminations were for socio-economic reasons and had nothing to do with rape or life-limiting conditions, this is even more crucial. I want to make it clear that while I am opposed to much of the contents of this bill and will be voting against it, I do intend to support reasonable amendments, as I respect the people have spoken. And as I said earlier, I did my best not to direct any hit at any party or any group here, but I am disappointed, especially one political party who did their best to stop somebody from speaking and even criticise that person from speaking here today. That same party were censored from speaking for many, many years in this country. And exactly, and thank God women have the freedom of speech, and that party have the freedom of speech today, and that gentleman has too. Thank you very much.